Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mevar Tegar. Welcome to our 289th Wonder Worlds of Wondering episode of Mando Vision. I am your host, Narguy Tom. And thank you so much for checking out our small independent Star Wars podcast. So glad that you're here. Hey, while you're at it, why don't you hit us up on the socials? We're at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. You can hit us up at Blue Sky, too, where we're just Mando Vision. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, and sharing the show with all of the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we are back for Episode 3 of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. And I have to be honest, guys, I'm really enjoying the show so far. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I really am enamored in the mysteries we have going on in the show. I'm enjoying the kids and their dynamic. Now that we've added Jude Law's character of Jad Nana-Wood, we'll get a little bit more of that dynamic, a little bit more of now the kids have to kind of put past their differences and figure out what's going on with this guy. And I'm loving it. I love the way all the characters are kind of bouncing off each other, the way they're all sort of interacting with one another. And, of course, the mysteries that the show is now presenting to us, I find them to be infinitely compelling. I'm intrigued. I want to know more. And in typical Star Wars fashion, it seems like there are characters who could illuminate us a little bit further on certain topics, but have chosen to mysteriously not. They're keeping that info for themselves, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of some of the questions that we've begun to ask ourselves as an audience over these first 3 episodes, because now I think we really kind of move forward into like the meat of the show. Remember what we talked about last week? How certain media members were granted the screeners for the first 3 episodes of the show, so a lot of people already kind of knew where we were going. Now, as we head into episode 4, we're in uncharted territory. Nobody knows what's next. Everyone's on equal footing, and we're all in for the surprises, for the fun, for the ride. And I'm here for it. So, without further ado, really, I think we should go ahead and talk about this episode of the show. So let's go ahead and get our episode particulars out of the way. This is Star Wars Skeleton Crew, Season 1, Episode 3. Very interesting as an astrogation problem. Original air date, or released to the world, I guess is maybe a better way to say it. December 10th, 2024. Once again, directed by David Lowery, written by Christopher Ford and John Watts. Joining our cast this week, we have some special voice actor friends joining us. We have Alfred Molina, the great Alfred Molina, as Benjar Pranik, the Ishi-Tib that we see on Port Borgo. And then Aaliyah Shawkat as Kim, possibly my new favorite Star Wars character. I don't know. I don't want to go too far, too fast with this character, but Kim is a visual treat. I want to know more. Tell me more about this mysterious owl cat that hangs out in an observatory on a moon far, far away. I want to know more. So, that being said, our plot this week is another real big plot episode. You know, like, they really nail it here. A mysterious stranger offers to help our heroes. Well, Kim's not all that mysterious. Though in many senses, every character in the show is mysterious to these children, who we find out even a little bit more about their isolation, the way their world is hidden from the rest of the galaxy. We get into some of those mysteries. So that being said, all right, let's go ahead. Let's get into it. You guys ready? You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
Did I even get that right? Did I say that correctly? The name of the episode, very interesting, as an astrogation problem. Did I get that right the first time? We'll check the tape. But these episode titles, they're lines directly from the scripts for the episode, and oftentimes they are very wordy. So, yeah, there you go. Astrogation problems, my friends, and we'll get a little bit more into that. The episode opens up. We go back to Ad Atten. We follow one of the security droids around as it makes its way out from this what can only be the center of town, it's the city center, if you will, where we see kind of like what looks like more. I want to say like imperial-looking housing or building structures at the very, very least. Into the suburbs where our kids reside, to interact with the parents who are all together. Their children are missing. They are concerned. Wendell, Wim's father, might be the most concerned of them, if that's possible. Everyone's freaking out a little bit here, but Wendell seems to suspect that maybe there's more going on or at the very least, he's not surprised by the supervisor's lack of interest in stepping in and contacting the Republic. If they can even contact the Republic because of said barrier that keeps them so isolated from the galaxy around them. It protects them and hides them, but also it seemingly limits what kind of communication they can give and send and receive. If that's even something they're interested in, because part of me sort of wonders if the isolation is intentional and they are disconnected from the rest of the galaxy for a specific purpose. For the supervisor character, this Wizard of Oz-like character who we only know by name, but it's thrown around quite a bit so far in these episodes. But Wendell seems to be, again, not surprised that they're getting the runaround from this droid, that they seemingly cannot meet with the supervisor, things like this. Now, maybe that all changes because, again, Fern's mother wields more political power in this dynamic, and maybe she can make some things happen. But right now the parents are at a loss here. Something interesting was said. We see KB's parents for the first time, and they talk about how now that she's off world, she's disconnected from the like the life monitor or whatever like that. Is that just like a helicopter parent sort of device to like let them know that when they're not around, their kid's still alive? Or does KB have some kind of medical issue that we need to start maybe paying attention to? Possibly more on that in future episodes as we get a little bit more into that character and maybe more of what's going on with her, because KB's still sort of our mysterious character. She gets to step up in this episode. She has a lot of nice little moments in this episode. One with Jod on the ship, and then another one on the observatory moon when she forces Jod into negotiations. When she and Fern have considerable more leverage finally to force a conversation with the man. We'll get to that though. We'll get to that. But yeah, a couple more questions pop up about these kids. Fern, Neil, and Wim seem. I feel like we got a good beat on them. KB is kind of our mystery character now. Maybe I was gonna make a KB Toys store joke, but I'm not gonna do it. I will resist the urge to do it. Sorry, friends. But let's go now to Port Borgo, where our heroes, the missing children, the lost boys, aka lost children, are captives. They're in the brig, and their salvation may lie in the hands of Jod Na-Na-Wood, as we get to know him, as the children get introduced to him but is quickly revealed. Yes, of course, this is also Captain Silvo from the first episode, who is mutinied against by his crew, and Captain Brutus takes over for him. There is a lot of beings in the brig, so there's a fun little moment or two here and there where we get a tentacle coming out of a cell, a la Return of the Jedi. One creature's going to get a little electroshock for getting too close to the bars. It's a neat scene, and the kids are already making their way out. Like, we're not lingering. There's no negotiations here in the cells. This episode, kind of like the show so far, like, it has a really nice pace to it. It moves really, really quickly. We get from A to B to C in these episodes, real lickety split, and I'm digging that. I'm loving that element to it. I also love the dynamic here. Yes, Everyone wants out of the cell, so they're going to follow this guy who's going to get him out, who seemingly has force powers. Now, I'm a little bit more convinced after this episode that Jod can use the force, but in a very sort of novice way, a way that he's learned over the years to do just enough to benefit himself. He can turn off lights. He can make sounds down the hallway. He can levitate keys. I sincerely doubt there's any sort of Jedi background for this person. Could be wrong about that. We'll find out. But I would imagine, judging by his age, he would have been probably a child at the fall of the Republic, maybe a teen even. Depends on what age they decide to give him. So force training doesn't seem like a real big likelihood. I would also sort of be a little put off if he were yet another survivor of Order 66. So I'd rather he just be like one of these kids who kind of fell through the cracks and then kept his force talents, as small as they might be, relatively hidden. They just kind of helped him survive over the years. But again, we'll see what we get. We'll see what we get to when more information about this character is revealed over time through these episodes. I love that Neil and Wim, the boys, are so quick to believe in Jod that he's a Jedi. He's here to help them. He's going to do only good things. And I love that Fern and KB are the skeptics. They're the ones who push back. They're like, why is this guy helping us? He clearly only was interested when he heard there was treasure. I love that Fern kind of calls him out and asks him, why if he could have left whenever he wanted, why didn't he leave sooner? And I do love his response too. He's like, why would I leave when I didn't have a ship to go anywhere? Now you guys have a ship. We can go. We can escape. We can get out of here. So Jod has a lot of quick answers for the questions that the kids have so far. And I do really enjoy that. I like that a lot. The back and forth between the kids and Jod is good. And I think it's going to get better as they get to be around each other a little bit more. I think it's a fun dynamic for Jude Law and the kids as actors to get to kind of start to play off of each other a little bit more. So yeah, we get the full introduction of Jod Na Wood, a.k.a. Captain Silvo, and a.k.a. Crimson Jack, but we're going to talk about that later. So who is this guy? This is another mystery that we're adding to the show at this point. We now have a character who, by the end of this, we know will have 3 names. 3 names. And again, what's his deal? Where did he come from? Who is this guy really? What's happening here? Is he just some sort of con man? He goes from one thing to another. He steals identities. He borrows names that he's heard before. Is he impersonating another captain named Silvo that he was aware of? We have the same question we can ask about Crimson Jack, but we'll get to that. We're gonna put a pin in Crimson Jack until a little bit later because Crimson Jack is a name with some history to it. So we will talk about that a little bit more fully later on. Fern, also very aware, as the skeptic of the group, the Scully, if you will, that their escape's pretty easy. They get to one of those little portal ships to go, that's going to ferry them back up to the Onyx Cinder. Excuse me, I couldn't remember the name of the ship for a second. And it's all pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And Fern's sort of like, what the heck? Why was this so easy to get away from there? And we don't get a lot of answers on that, unfortunately. Was it just that they were able to blend in, that the pirates weren't looking for them, so they were able to kind of just make their way around? There is a nice moment as they make their way to the little ferry port where we see another fight break out, and Neil, probably the most innocent of these kids, becomes scared of the violence around him, and Jod has to come back and bring him back to the group. I thought it was just a nice little quiet moment for these two characters. Not that it bonds them in any form, but it does show that Jod's not like some sort of just total creep, totally using them. Like he's like, no, let me get this kid away from this violence, and I think that sort of says a lot about what's underlying with Jod's character, that maybe he is a scoundrel, but one with the heart of gold underneath, and deep down. But we'll find out if that's right or wrong. So they get back to the Onyx Cinder. I love Jod's reaction when he sees the ship. That's good stuff. I love that he's also trying to take off right away. And then the kids are like, wait a second, what are you doing? We got to go back. We can't forget SN33. They're a robot pirate friend who aided them when they were trying to make their escape last time. And Jod has no time for that. Jod seems very anti-droid. There's a couple instances in this episode where Jod expresses a very anti-droid sentiment. As you all know in this podcast, I don't tolerate anti-droid sentiment. So Jad's going to have to work on himself if we're going to be friends. That's all I'm saying about that. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in the episode as we kind of get to it. But another good back and forth between the characters, specifically Fern, as she kind of puts him on the spot about leaving a man behind, don't Jedi, not do that sort of thing. And Jad, again, having to be quick on his feet, having to have quick responses ready to go, loaded up in the chamber. Boom, boom, boom. Love the back and forth. I think they did a really great job with the dialogue for these characters. I think it works. And it also helps, again, create that sort of mysterious aura around Jad, because as an audience, we're familiar with the ideas of the Jedi and the concepts of the Jedi. And obviously Jad has a familiarity too, but is it just from what he's seen on the holovids, or is there more to it? But again, I at least get the feeling that he's definitely playing them, but he's trying to figure out like how much he can play them before he exceeds his base of knowledge for what a Jedi is or is not. So again, great stuff. But the kids do leverage the situation just enough so that Jad does go back to recover SN-33, and that leads him to a droid workshop on Port Borgo, where we see several other droids. There's a couple sad cases of droids. One who wants to save a prince, but he has no eyes. I mean, it's comical but sad at the same time. And that leads us to the character voiced by Alfred Molina, Benjar Pranik, a former crewman when Jad was just was Captain Silva leading the pirates, and Pranik seems to be some sort of droid collector or like amateur droidsmith maybe. We're not entirely sure, but he talks well about Silvo and how he was the best captain, and Brutus isn't much of one at all. And again, I like the dialogue between the two. It's got like a really Star Warsy pirate mashup of language that I really enjoyed. And then as Jad's making his way out with SN-33, of course, a pirate's going to be a pirate. So Pranik's like, hey, you just wouldn't have anything to do with those kids and all those dataries that were popping around in our last episode, would it? And it ends rather mysteriously as Pranik puts him on the spot, is about to call some guards over, and then we cut away. So we don't really know the fate of Pranik. If he is in the episode later, in the background somewhere, I missed it. I have not seen him on my 2 viewings of the episode yet. So we don't know if this confrontation ends in violence, or perhaps Jad/Silvo cuts a deal and was like, "Hey, let me go, let me get out of this, and when I get that payday that I've been talking about for years and years and years, I'm going to give you a slice." Maybe it's as simple as that. I'm not so sure though, because back on the ship, the kids are trying to decide if they should just leave, and that's taken away from them very, very quickly, because Jad is now in another one of those ferry ships, rushing back to the Onyx Cinder, with many other pirates in hot pursuit. So we don't know what happens necessarily. Now, my suspicion is that it ends in violence, and that's why Jad is discovered back on Port Borgo, and why so many forces are collapsing around him, trying to recapture him. We also find out that Silvo, a.k.a. Jad, was just days away from going on trial in front of Brutus and the rest of the pirates. So his escape was fortuitous timing at the very, very least. So again, a little bit more motivation for this character to make his move when he did. But I still kind of believe what he said about the kids. Before, he had no way to make his escape. Now he had access to a ship. The timing was right. But is there more to it? Probably. Probably. And I think we'll learn more about what that is as we move along in these episodes. But again, he rushes back to the ship. He gets back on fairly quickly with SN-33. These forces are in hot pursuit, but they're not like big gunboats or anything like that. Like it's the danger is somewhat minimal, I suppose, but it's going to escalate quickly here as they are attempting to make their escape, and Brutus is going to train a big old cannon on them. We get a great scene. I really enjoyed the scene where they are trying to make their escape. They're attached by a fuel line. They can't quite get away. Jod can't snap the fuel line either. So he does some maneuvering, wraps it around the whatever that fuel line machine is, and decides it's time to go to hyperspace. And if that doesn't sever it, then nothing will, right? KB reacting, isn't it dangerous to go to hyperspace when you're attached to something? Yeah, probably. But Jod throws a little bit of caution to the wind here and takes off. And again, I don't want to get into the physics of things. I don't understand the physics of things. Maybe there's just enough gravity involved at Port Borgo that when the ship releases and the fuel line snaps off and it snaps back into the station and causes all that chaos and havoc. I think it's a cool scene. I really liked it. I don't know if it's legitimate physics, if that would have worked in the dead of space. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not that smart. Not a physics guy. But I liked it. It looked cool. It was a lot of fun. And it led to the chaos of their escape and why there might not have been any sort of immediate pursuit after them. But you have to imagine that the pirates of Port Borgo are going to be sniffing around and hot on Jod and the kids' trail. They want a slice of this treasure too. But I think this episode was important for us to sort of deepen what maybe's going on at Atten and maybe why so many pirates are interested in this sort of legend, if you will. Now we're in hyperspace and it's time to catch our breath. The kids reactivate SN-33, who seems none too pleased to find another person on the Onyx Cinder, especially one purporting to be a Jedi. That seems to raise some suspicion in the droid. Meanwhile, Jod's off in the little galley area, spooning some food together, feeding himself. The kids look at him, obviously very, very hungry from their ordeal. There's enough in the bowl. They go feed. SN-33, again, very suspicious of this character. Particularly when he leaves the bowl that he just ate out of for SN-33 to clean up. Jod, not a high opinion of droids. I want to know why, because I'm not a fan of it. Not a fan. But I do love how suspicious SN-33 is of him. And then as Jod makes his way around the ship, getting himself familiar, finding some new shoes, some new clothing to wear. Oh, and a nice new weapon from the dead guy propped up against the wall. There's a little chat between he and SN-33, again, that I really, really enjoyed, where, again, Jod suspects the droid has all kinds of information, and the droid probably does, but something in his programming makes Snee have a tight lip, if you will, where he's not going to divulge information to just anybody. Now, it would be interesting if at some point Fern is able to get SN-33 to spill his guts about how they ended up at Atten in the first place. I suspect that is a story that eventually, maybe he can't access those memories, those files right now. But I suspect 33 knows more than he's letting on about how exactly they got to Atten in the first place. But there may be a block in place, and maybe we'll get around that at a certain point. So we get a great moment between Jod and the droid, and then a great moment between Jod and KB, who. After the urging of Jod that the children go to sleep, even though Fern says, I'm not even tired, and then she's knocked out in 4 seconds. Because the adrenaline, once it's gone, you crash. You just crash out. But KB's awake, and she's we're going to find out that she's something of a mathematician here, calculating odds and probabilities and things like that. And saying that the odds of Jod being a Jedi in that place at that time, marginal. Not good odds. And he's giving her the go with your gut kind of thing. He's like a lot of platitudes, right? Like sort of the stuff you would say when you want someone to trust that you're there to help them. So again, a bit of a con going on here, right? Like these should be sort of red flags for a lot of us, right? That Jod is saying what the kids want to hear, but there's definitely something beneath the surface here that he's playing them to an extent. Like there's something that he wants. He's allowing them to believe that he's a Jedi, even though he hasn't said it, and he does come out and say that at a certain point. He's never said he was a Jedi. He just let them believe that he was. So, again, a little bit of a con element going on here. So, what kind of character is Jod? Is he a pirate? Is he a con man? Is he a thief? Is he just a scoundrel in general? A man of ill repute, if you will. And we'll get a little bit more glimpse of that here momentarily because we are about to land on the observatory moon. I think this is a great setup. I love this location. A character living on this moon with a giant telescope, looking out at the stars, mapping things, just chronicling the stars, right? Like stellar cartography at its best. Love this whole setup. It's great. Also love the fact that as soon as Jod sets foot on this moon, Kim has cameras everywhere and is immediately on the phone with the authorities, calling the cops like, hey, this deadbeat's back and I need to get him off my moon. And it makes me laugh. And she's like, yeah, I'm okay. All right, New Republic, I'm going to stall. But you guys get the fuzz over here as quick as you can to get this riffraff off my face. And then we get the eyeball droids, obviously, throwing back to Return of the Jedi. I love that she has 3 of them. And they all just kind of come around Jod's face. But this is when we get the first moment of him being referred to as by another name, Crimson Jack, who, if you are an old fogey like myself, you may recall, in the original Marvel Comics Expanded Universe lore, back in 1977, when they finished adapting the original movie, right? When the first 6 issues of the Star Wars comic were adapting the film. So issue 7 was the first time that we were getting like a new Star Wars story after the movies had taken place. And it was a time where no one really knew what Star Wars was and what it could be and what it was going to be. So I think Marvel and writers like Roy Thomas and people like that, Archie Goodwin, these guys, they just sort of went with what they knew from the sci-fi of the time, like Buck Rogers stuff, Flash Gordon kind of stuff. And we went with space pirates. And a space pirate by the name of Crimson Jack is why Han Solo couldn't pay off his debts to Jabba the Hutt in the original Marvel Comics explanation. He got he pilfered those funds on his way to Tatooine to pay Jabba. And that's why there was a bounty hunter waiting for him on Ord Mantell in Empire Strikes Back. Or before Empire Strikes Back, technically. Crimson Jack, it was also brought back into Marvel canon recently with the miniseries for the Halcyon Cruiser. I think it was the 5th issue of that series. That book hops around in the Star Wars time zones, right? You get some High Republic era, you get some prequel era, you get some main Star Wars era, and you get sequel era. The Crimson Jack came in the sequel era, if memory serves correctly, at the time of the First Order and the Resistance and these things going on. So they sort of reintroduced Crimson Jack this way. Now Crimson Jack in the comics, big burly bearded man. So visually, not quite a match for Jude Law, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. Right now, we don't know if he is supposed to be this character or if it's just a reference. We don't know if in his profession as a con man, if Jod doesn't just assume identities randomly when it's convenient for him. So maybe at some point he assumed the identity of a pirate he was aware of named Crimson Jack. Not sure. There's a lot of mystery around this character, and I'm digging it. I'm here for it. But I love the reference. I love the callback, going back to 1977 and then going back just a couple years to the reintroduction, the recanonization of Crimson Jack. But will it all tie together? Who knows? It's Star Wars on film, and that changes the game. That changes everything. And then the comics will have to work around whatever they do on this show. And they'll figure out a way to make it all fit and make it all work, because that's what they always do. That's why they have such talented professional writers doing these things. But yeah, it's a fun little wink and a nod to a bygone era of Star Wars lore. Fun stuff. Now let's go into the observatory. Let's go check this place out, because I love it. Visually, one of the most exciting little places I've seen in Star Wars. I don't know what it is. I just was fascinated by the whole idea of it, of the telescopes and the records and the trinkets that she collects. Kim is a fascinating character. I'm very intrigued by her and her whole deal. I want to know more about her species, how she ended up on this moon. Does she work with pirates a lot, or does she have a different connection to Jack in a different way? Jack/Jod, I should say. I want to know more. Tell me more. And Kim is ready to throw the book at Jod. She's given him the riot act, but is instantly intrigued with the mention of At-Aten, something that she's believed in for quite some time. And this is where we get a lot of new information for us to process, right? She refers to At-Aten as one of the jewels of the Old Republic. It's one of the worlds of wonder, all right? Purposely hidden to protect its resources, its beauty. I'm not quite sure. It's a little vague on that. There were many of these worlds. I can't remember if they gave a specific number, 8 or 9, something like that. They showed that on that chart. But many of them were destroyed eventually. Like, were they plundered? Were they pillaged by pirates? Something more different? Again, it's unclear. But only At-Aten remains, and it has sort of devolved into devolved, I don't know, into a children's story, into a myth, into pirate shanties. Or something that only drunken fools believe in. It's one of the worlds of wonder of the Old Republic, and that's what they refer to, and that might change the way we look at what they talked about on At-Aten last week in that first episode when they referred to the Great Work. And if you read Star Wars: The High Republic, you will know a little bit about some of the great works that are mentioned in those books by the Chancellor of the time, Chancellor So. Now, are they connected? Was At-Aten hidden back in the days of the High Republic, 200 plus years before the Galactic Civil War? Is it longer? Is it less? Unsure. Is the Great Works even connected in that sense? We don't know. But these are the mysteries that are building around At-Aten, and I think that it's really, really fun, and I'm really intrigued by what we're getting here. I have so many questions. Will we get answers to all of them? I don't know. But I'm infinitely fascinated by it, this whole Jewels of the Old Republic. And then, again, they're trying to get the information so they can figure out where At-Aten's at. And you sort of ask if there's other worlds nearby. And the children reference Alderaan. And Jod and Kim sort of scoff at that, be like, oh, these kids must not know much about the war. And Neil's like, what war? And so, it shows you how disconnected they are from everything. Even what they're being taught in school is completely outdated information. Like, these kids have nothing current as far as if any sort of galactic knowledge. Like, they have no idea of anything. And I think that sort of adds to, like, their charm a little bit. Like, they have just been in this fishbowl their entire lives, and now they are the fish out of water in a much, much larger galaxy. There's a line earlier in the episode where Fern finds out that there's 10,000 stars, more, and it blows her mind. Like, these are just things that they just don't know where they come from. And so as they get to explore this galaxy finally for the first time, like, their base of knowledge is about to be shattered and expanded upon in profound ways. It's going to be very, very interesting for them to go back to At-Aten and not well, let's put it this way. Odds are At-Aten is not going to stay hidden for much longer by the end of this series. It'll be a known world. It'll be forced into the light. It'll have to be part of the galaxy again. To what extent, we do not know. But I'm so intrigued by all of these things. It's just really, really fun. And then, of course, Jod figures out that Kim is stalling. She's gotten enough information. She has a real good probability, like a map, some coordinates on how to get to At-Aten. But now she's stalling because she's still, the New Republic's still coming to arrest Crimson Jack over here. He figures that out, and it's time to go. They get into a little scuffle. They're going to head back out to their ship before the New Republic arrives because they don't want to get waylaid. And this is when KB has a little chat with Kim. And Kim is like, well, he's gotten, you can't trust this man. KB says he's gotten us this far, and we just want to go home. And then Kim offers her help. Like, whenever the kids need it, call Kim. So probably not the last time we're going to see this character. And I'm intrigued by that. But now, Kim also tells KB to, like, hold that man's feet to the fire and get the truth. Find out what he wants. Find out what he's doing. What's his purpose here? And that's exactly what KB and Fern are going to do when they get back to the ship, while the New Republic's circling, scouring, looking for Crimson Jack. This is when they're going to hold his feet to the fire. Neil and Wim are sort of on the sidelines for this conversation because this is all Fern and KB standing up and putting their foot down. They're like, this guy's not getting back on the ship until we know what's going on. until we understand what's happening and what exactly we've signed up for. And now, is Jod completely honest? Maybe, maybe not. But he says he's like the kids, that he's alone and he's looking for belonging, and he gives them those things that I think are partially true, but maybe not his entire motivation. But I think there is more truth to them than maybe he wants to let on. Again, we'll see how it all shakes out. We'll see if it's part of his game. But I do love the Fern calling for 33 and him standing like behind there, like the big enforcer droid that he kind of is, with that torch in his hand, and Jod knowing that he's pushed that droid's buttons already, quite literally, and knowing that he's not going to walk away from a fight with that droid if they get into one, and so. Jod makes another plea. Like, we're going to be partners in this, right? And I love that KB says, no, you work for us. And I loved it because this is that moment where the kids have all the leverage. Jod has none. And he has to agree to terms, basically, or risk capture by the New Republic. So he does. And they're going to take off in a hurry. X-Wings in hot pursuit. And what do we get? Classic Star Wars fun. Kids up in gun turrets, firing at X-Wings, which is it's a little crazy when you think about it. Like, oh, these kids could have like blown up, the like law enforcement at this point. It's kind of wild when you think about it in those terms. Luckily, no one gets hurt. There's nothing too serious that happens here. One of them wings the X-Wing, or nicks the X-Wing, I suppose. But the idea these kids are just full opening fire on New Republic forces is they had to be careful with that scene, because there could have been something they couldn't walk away from if one of them scored a lucky shot and blew a ship up and killed a guy. That would have been a lot. And again, I go back to Jod's escape from Port Borgo, the scene with Brannick. Did we cut away from that scene because we don't want to see that kind of violence? This is not that kind of show. Or is it because like it's going to be something that shakes out later on in the episode and we find out that they cut a deal? We'll find out. I'm sure we'll figure those little elements out down the road. But this episode does walk back some of the more violent things that it showed in the first episode. I think that first episode maybe showed us a level of violence just to kind of get the point across that the pirates are dangerous, that these are not pushover pirates. But now they've had to kind of like walk it back just a smidge, make sure the kids know the kids aren't going to, commit any grievous acts of wanton violence and start killing people. Not that kind of show. Not that kind of show, my friends. Then of course, the Onyx Cinder was going to take off into hyperspace, make its escape from the observatory moon. And when the X-Wing wings land, Kim's like, "What do you mean you let him go?" And they didn't want to risk it. They knew that Jod had kids with him. They weren't going to open fire in lethal fire, I guess is the best word. They definitely appeared to be trying to disable the Onyx Cinder, but they didn't want to risk hurting the kids. And that's nice to hear too, that these guys were just hell bent on capturing Crimson Jack. Consequences to the children be damned. So glad to see that too. Apparently these New Republic guys, not so bad at all. A little surprised we didn't get a familiar a friend. No Captain Tiva, no Zeb, nothing like that. But that would have been fun. But maybe it's too many. That might have been too Easter eggy for even me. Who knows? But yeah, that's how the episode ends. Kids back in hyperspace. We now have the observatory moon behind us. But Kim knows that people are looking for At-Aten. Now the question is, will Brutus know that Jod is going to go to the observatory moon? And will he then go to find out where they're going to get more coordinates for At-Aten? Now, Jod did blow up everything that had that data in it. So recreating it might be more of a challenge for Kim than one would think. But Kim's also pretty smart. Might have backup somewhere. I guess we'll have to find out. But yeah, I would imagine that very, very soon here, Brutus is going to be in hot pursuit. The New Republic's going to be in hot pursuit. There's going to be a lot of people chasing after these kids here soon. And I would imagine also we start pulling back the layers on At-Aten itself. I suspect Wendell is going to be getting more involved in the mystery of what the heck's actually going on their planet. What exactly are they doing? Why are they so isolated? Why are they so disconnected from the rest of the galaxy? I'm loving these mysteries. I'm loving all these elements in the show. I'm having a blast with it so far. And I hope it keeps going. Like, so far, 3 episodes in, I'm having a blast, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. It's been a fun ride so far, and I'm stoked to see where it goes next. I can't wait. It's going to be a good time. I'm giving this one 8 buckets. I had a blast. So much fun. I can't wait to rewatch it again probably later tonight. And I look forward to the next one. With that being said, Bucketheads, I think we're going to get out of here because I don't have much other Star Wars news to talk about at the moment, So thank you so much for the support. That was a nice lisp right there. All of a sudden, just popped right out. This is the Mandovision Podcast, and I am your host, Nargai Tom. Thank you always for the support. Small independent shows like us need you, and we're so glad that you're here. Reach out to us on the socials at Mando_Vision, Twitter, /X, and Instagram. You can find me on Blue Sky at just Mandovision. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. And again, make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, and sharing the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. Great way to support the show. Sweet, sweet, sweet 5-star reviews. They help us out tremendously. Thank you to anyone who takes the time to do that, especially this holiday season. If you have a little extra time in your hands, just hit that 5 stars and maybe type in a little blurb. That'd be so great. Thank you so much, friends. All right. We'll be back next week. The release schedule for these episodes is still going to be somewhat sporadic, unplanned. We'll see. My work schedule is very interesting over the holidays. So we'll get these out to you guys as quick as we can. But know that it will still be weekly. It just maybe be like a few extra days between here and there, possibly. I'm going to try my best to mitigate that. All right, friends, Bucketheads, go out there. It's the holidays. Parties are happening. Please be aware. Be safe. Don't drink and drive. Take those Ubers. Take those Lyfts. Get the designated driver thing going on. Take care of each other. Protect each other. Go have fun, though. It's the holidays. I love the holidays. I hope you love the holidays. And if you're not the biggest on the holidays, hey, reach out. I'm here. We'll chat on the socials. Find me. All right? Take care of each other. Be great Star Wars fans, and we'll be back next week. But remember, in the meantime, this podcast, it only ends one way, my friends. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature and deliver it to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.